I went there with a good heart. Not for money, not because someone begged, not for forgiveness. But because my grandmother said, I want to see you. Without you, this table is empty. And you know what? I believed it. I freaking believed that there was actually someone there waiting for me. That after years of silence and estrangement, our family would once again gather around the same table and not tear each other apart like they used to. That's what I was going with. The house smelled like fried chicken, but not the way it did when I was a kid. That smell seemed foreign now, as if it came from strangers. The table was set royally. China plates, napkins and rings. Someone had even lit candles. Everyone was already there. Linda and her husband, the eternal know-it-all in a tie, my mom looking away as if she hoped I wouldn't come. Uncle Frank, Aunt June, and Grandma, sitting at the head of the table, straight as a candle, hands in her lap, eyes like x-rays. I walked over, said hello. Grandma gave me a hug. The others? Well, some nodded, some even grinned. I was offered a seat on the edge of the table, like an uninvited guest who had come by mistake. I sat down, exhaled, poured myself some water. Conversations flowed on top of me. About discounts, about neighbors, about how Linda's son got into college without a single help. Not a single question to me. Not a how are you? Or what are you doing for a living? I was just there. Like furniture. Like a stage set. I didn't say anything. Not because I was offended. I just didn't want to get involved. I wanted things to go smoothly. I sat there, chewing on these stuffed peppers, thinking, what if it works? Maybe today will be okay. And then Grandma took a knife and tapped the glass 3 times. David, darling, she said loudly, as if announcing the winner of a lottery. Please tell me, are you satisfied with the $1,500 I send you every month? There was silence. Real silence. The kind where even the clocks go silent. Everyone turned to me. Mom's got a face like she'd been doused with cold water. Linda with an I knew it look. Her husband was up in his chair, like he'd finally heard something interesting. And me, I just froze. My mouth was dry. Grandma, I started. You didn't have to say it out loud. What's the big deal? She asked, as if she didn't really understand. We're family. Let them know you don't live on the streets. Well, they do now, Linda put in. I just found out that my unemployed brother makes more than I do a month sitting on the couch in the city. I don't sit on the couch, I said. I have my own business. Socks? Her husband interjected. The ones you sew and sell online? I'm sorry, that's not a business. It's a hobby that Grandma pays for. I wanted to fall through the floor at that moment. I came to say thank you, to tell you that I'm ready to drop the payments, that I was getting orders, that I was finally starting to pull through. I came with an open heart. I got a slap in the face. Mom, did you know about this? Linda turned to our mother. Thought it was a one-time thing, she mumbled. So much for family. Not one person at this table asked how I was after the divorce. After being alone in an apartment with no furniture, no money, no friends. Not one. But everyone immediately started counting how much I was getting. Listen, I said, standing up. I came to eat with you, not to humiliate myself. You call that eating? Linda grinned. It's called reminding everyone what you're owed. I looked at Grandma. She was silent. Just stayed silent. Didn't even try to stop. You know, Linda, I said, you're always talking about fairness. Well, I never asked for that money. Grandma offered it to me. I refused. She insisted. And you just always wanted to be loved more. You wanted to be the only one. Well, I'm sorry I was ever born. And I'm out. Not loudly. No door slamming. I just walked out. Because I realized I don't belong in this family. Even if I call it mine. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat. I just sat there and remembered how my grandmother used to bake me cinnamon cookies when I was a kid. How she ironed my shirts in first grade. And how today she let me be made a fool of. At a community dinner. In the house where I grew up. All because I dared to come. With gratitude. I woke up in the morning, if you could even call it sleep. I could see their faces in my head. Those sneers. Those looks. Linda, with the squint of a predator waiting to finish you off. Mom, averting her eyes again like when I was a kid, when I cried in the room alone and she pretended not to hear. And Grandma, her eyes, not angry, no, just empty, like she'd already made up her mind long before I arrived. I walked down the street for no reason, no purpose, past the pharmacy where my grandmother used to buy my vitamins, past the school where I once fought with a boy for calling my mom names, the park where she and I used to sit on a bench and she'd say, "You have to be strong. You can't give up." And now I'm an adult. And it turns out all I've done is become the person my own family is ashamed of. I got back to my temporary apartment around lunchtime, opened up my laptop, checked my orders. $5,000. African-inspired socks, my experiment. One order from Atlanta, one from Ohio. I smiled. Small steps, but mine. Then came a text from Grandma. "You left too soon. I wanted to talk. Come over tonight. Just you and me." I read it, and I didn't answer, because I didn't know what she wanted. An explanation, an apology, or maybe another "let everyone know"? But I did go back that night. The house was quiet. Too quiet. No Linda, no Mom, no TV. Just Grandma in the kitchen, chopping carrots as if they weren't a vegetable, but something she wanted out of her life once and for all. "You're here," she said without turning around. "Sit down." I sat down, opposite. "Why did you do it?" I asked. "In front of everyone?" She wiped her hands, looked me in the eye, for a long time, "Because they had to see that you hadn't disappeared, that you're here, that you're alive, and that I support you." Support looks different, Grandma. It wasn't "I'm with you." It was "look at him," like a showcase, like a trophy. She sighed. "I was tired. Tired of choosing who to love. Tired of one word in your direction making everyone else jealous. Tired of pretending we're family. We're a showcase. We're the show. And you, David, you're the only one who isn't acting. That's why they hate you." I didn't say anything, because I knew she wasn't lying, and that only made it hurt more. "They think I get everything from you. All I get is pain," I said. "I didn't come for the money. I came for the right to be a part of this family. But it seems I don't have that right." Grandma didn't answer. She just pulled an old photo album out of a drawer and put it in front of me. "This is all I have, David. Here you are, a child that no one noticed. I did, but I couldn't save you from their cold stares. I just gave you a piece of pie when they got the whole dish. I tried, you know? I was leafing through the pages. Here's me with a shattered knee on the porch. Here I am with a cake with 3 candles on it, but not a single person by my side. Here I am in my costume for my first day of school, standing against the wall, alone. Did you know your mother wanted to put you in an orphanage?" Grandma suddenly asked me. I looked up. "What?" "After your father left, she wasn't coping. Screaming, crying, sleeping around the clock. I came to you, saw you sitting on the floor with a dirty face and wet pants. I took you in. She didn't mind. I felt something squeeze inside me. It was like someone had squeezed my heart into a fist. Why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because it doesn't make it easier. It just makes the pain louder. But you should know it wasn't your fault. It never was. And if anyone said otherwise, they were lying. I'm up. You know what hurts the most? That even now when you tell me this, I feel guilty. Because in this family, it's always your fault that you're alive. I left a second time. No anger. No words. Only the feeling that the truth had finally come out. And that it was more bitter than the lies. That evening, I found myself back at the same cafe by the train station. I sat at a table by the window where no one usually sits. I ordered a coffee and just stared into the glass. Behind the glass, passers-by, families, couples, children. Everyone was going somewhere. They all had someone with them. And me with this letter, with pictures from the past, and with a truth I hadn't known in 30 years. You know, I didn't complain. I didn't run to my relatives. I didn't yell, "Look how I was treated." I just sat there and thought, this is the truth. Not loud, not theatrical. Just the one that was hidden under the wrappings of "we're a family." I finished my coffee. I got up. And I said to myself out loud, if this is my family, then it's time to build my own. What happened next changed everything. You don't want to miss how it unfolded. The next morning I woke up to my phone literally vibrating with messages. No good morning or how are you? Just ping after ping. One voicemail, one marked important, one from Uncle Frank. Even my mom texted. That's something, considering the last time she texted me, Merry Christmas, was in May. The first thing I did was play a voicemail from Linda. Her voice was metallic, like she was reading a guilty verdict. Okay, David, you can feign innocence all you want, but you knew full well you were getting money from your grandmother behind everyone's back. And if you think you can manipulate the old lady into signing over the house to you, you're wrong. We won't let you. Not me, not mom, not uncle. And don't pretend to be poor. Everyone can see everything. I leaned back in my chair. The house? What house? I didn't know about any house. I never discussed the will with my grandmother. And now it appeared someone had it in their hands. I opened the second message, from a lawyer. In a polite, almost apologetic tone, he asked me to confirm receipt of the paperwork for the Margaret Brown will, and to clarify how soon I could sign a consent. Consent to what? I called back. The receptionist said Grandma had handed over the papers a week ago. According to them, she's transferring the whole house to me, with no right of renegotiation. My jaw dropped. At that moment, my mother almost kicked in the door. She walked in like a prosecutor who'd just found evidence. Did you know? She shouted, showing me the paper. Did you know she wanted to give everything to you? I didn't know anything. I answered. I swear. I just got a letter from a lawyer. She wouldn't listen. She kept repeating, she's crazy. She's getting old. She doesn't know what she's doing. Maybe this is the first time she knows what she's doing, I muttered. Maybe she just doesn't want to be your milkmaid anymore. Mom froze. Then she sat up slowly, and for the first time ever, she looked me in the eye. Do you really think that's fair? Do you think the way you made me look at dinner is fair? She didn't say anything. She got up and walked away, but that was just the beginning. Later that day, Uncle Frank came up to me. I was sitting on a bench by the mailbox, trying to process everything that was going on. He was as reserved as ever, but his eyes gave away his mood. David, he began, you do realize that if she signs this officially, we'll be thrown out of the house, right? Us? You don't live there, Frank. Linda and her mother do. I come down every weekend. I grew up there just like you. Then why did you let me get kicked out so easily? He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because you left, and we stayed. And when you left, you took yourself off the hook. But not Grandma. She still waited for your calls. She wrote to you, and you answered once every 6 months. He stood up, looked at me like I was a lost opportunity. A house isn't just a roof. It's a memory. If you take it away, she dies alone. And we'll hate you. The whole family. My insides are boiling. I'm not taking anything away from anyone, I said. You gave it away. Before I even got here. After he left, I went to my grandmother's house. Without warning, the door was open. There were papers in the living room. The smell of valerian in the air. She sat with a straight back, like in church. Next to her was a folder titled, Will, Final. Are you serious? I asked. Do you really want me to have it all? I don't want the house to go to someone who doesn't even know where the pictures of their childhood are, she said. And you do, because you were the only one who was even interested. But do you see what started? I do. And that's why I accelerated the process. You're adding fuel to the fire, Grandma. I'm giving you the fire you never had. The rest is your choice. At that moment, I realized she wasn't doing it to punish someone, but to give me, perhaps for the first time in my life, not pity, but support. But the family took it like a war. The next day, I got a call from the local courthouse. Petition. Linda had filed a petition to declare her grandmother partially incapacitated by a mental condition. I sat down. I didn't even lie down, I sat down. Because all I could think was, they're going head-on. I'm not playing anymore, I said to myself. No more being polite. I called my grandmother. I told her I'd be there, that we'd go to the notary's office, that I'd be there. And I went. We arrived alone. I held her hand. She walked slowly, but with a straight back. She filed the papers, signed in front of a notary. She said, "I'm of sound mind. I'm not doing this on a whim, but because I want someone in this family to know what honesty looks like." The notary stamped it. I didn't smile, because I knew from that moment on, there was no turning back. That evening, I walked up to my grandmother's house. Standing at the gate was Linda, arms at her sides, eyes glistening. It was no longer a sister, but a prosecutor charging treason. "Are you glad?" she asked without even saying hello. "You're the owner now? Are you glad you destroyed everything we had?" "I didn't destroy anything, Linda," I answered calmly. "You set the fire yourself, I just didn't have time to put it out." "She's out of her mind. Do you realize that? She's more sane than all of you together." She came closer. "You just want to take and walk away with a piece that doesn't belong to you." I didn't say anything, because I realized, to her, I'm not a person anymore. I'm a symbol that their perfect family order had cracked. You know, when I was a kid, I used to watch you leave the house with a backpack and think, "Oh, he's gonna have a new life." Now I look at you and I realize you didn't go anywhere. You just came back to finish us off. I stepped closer. I came back to see if there was anything left to save. And you made me a thief. She didn't say anything. She just turned away. I went into the house. Grandma was asleep, but on the table was her old notebook. With notes, with dates, with expenses, and a note. To my son for his courses. To grandson for the apartment. To David for nothing. Because he never asked for it. And I realized it had already happened. The next day in court, the hearing was canceled. For lack of cause. I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. I went home and sat on the floor. Not on the couch, on the floor. Because that's where it all started. That's how I sat in my father's apartment when he disappeared. In a room with no furniture. In silence. And then I said to myself, "So now you're not just a guest. Now you're an heir. The only question is, heir to what?" I didn't know. But I knew one thing. There was no turning back. That evening, I went out on the porch and just sat down. No phone. No blanket. No cup of tea. Because sometimes you just have to sit in silence to hear what's inside you. And inside I had scraps of voices, clanking thoughts, and one distinct question. Maybe I really shouldn't have come back. But then I remembered why I had come. I wanted to figure out who I was to this family. I know now. Not a hero, not a savior, not a favorite. I'm an irritant, an obstacle, a mirror. So be it. But if my grandmother saw me as someone worthy of a home, then someone saw me for real. Even if it was just one person. Even if it was at the end of my life. But they did. And that's good enough for me. "Thank you," I said into the void, just for not being silent. I went back to the house. I lay down. And for the first time in years, I fell asleep not as a fugitive, but as a man who had a place to stay. Even if only for a while. In the morning, I found an old tape in a drawer. The very pictures my grandmother had told me about. I had them developed at the studio on the corner. When I picked up the first print, I almost dropped it. I'm about 6 years old. Hugging my grandmother on the veranda. Summer. Watermelon in my hands. Laughter in my eyes. And no one around. No Linda, no mom, no uncle. Just us. I ran my finger over the image. And I realized, yes, I had owned this house back then. Not by deed. By memory. The warmth. The silence I'd never found anywhere else. It's not a house anymore. It's a choice. And I made it. I carefully framed the photo and put it on the shelf. Not to brag. But to remind myself that sometimes all it takes is one person who sees you not as a mistake, but as family. Even if everyone else turns away. This is the climax. Everything you've been waiting for is right here. Stay to see the hero put everyone in their place. Week 3. The house stood quiet. No calls. No scandals. No visits. Just me, Grandma. And a silence that sometimes sounds louder than any accusation. She didn't get up early anymore. She slept more. More silent. Sometimes, as I walked past her room, I could hear her talking to herself. No, not delirious. Just like she was running through her memories of people who hadn't been around for a long time. One morning I was serving her tea and I heard her say, "David, you're not still here about the house, are you?" I lowered my eyes, because if I said no, I'd be lying. And if I said yes, I'd be lying too. "I'm here, Grandma," I answered. "As long as you're here." She nodded, as if that was all she needed to hear. But a few days later, things started to change. First came a letter from the bank. As it turned out, someone had been taking large sums of money out of her account over the past 2 years, under the guise of repair, medical, and care expenses, all with the consent of third parties. "Did you give someone access to the money?" I asked. "Linda. And your mother. I thought they were spending it on the house." I brought the files. There were transfers not to doctors, not to contractors, but to personal cards, stores, boutiques, massage subscriptions. "They spent your pension, Grandma, and they're still spending it." "They'll say they did it for me," she said calmly. "Would you stop making excuses for everybody?" And that's when she cried for the first time in ages. I didn't want to lose them at all. If I said no, they'd be gone. And I didn't want to be alone. I sat down next to her. "But you're still alone, Grandma. Just consciously now." It was the beginning of the end. Couple days later, Linda arrived. No call. No warning. Just walked in like a hostess with a folder under her arm. "We need to talk," she said. "No theater." "Theater is when you go into someone else's house with papers," I replied. "It's still a family home." "No. It's no longer for people who come when it's convenient. It's for those who were there when it was inconvenient." She took a seat. "Listen." Her voice became softer. "I realize you think you've won. You think you're right. But you know how this is going to end. Grandma's getting old. Everything she passed on to you will be a burden. This house isn't freedom. It's a curse. It's not a burden to you? Not for me. I know how to handle it. I'm not sentimental. You're too soft. I'm not soft. I just don't betray." She threw the folder on the table. "It's all here. Sign it over to me. I'll even give you a refund. In cash." I chuckled. "Compensation for what? For a childhood of not saying hello? For jabs with words? For not calling you to my funeral for me? For finally letting go of the past and getting on with your life?" I picked up the folder, looked at the papers. Everything was prepared. Clear. Cold. Like I wasn't here. Like I wasn't a part of it. I got the paperwork back. "No, Linda. My life begins with that rejection." The next morning, Grandma wasn't up anymore. I brought her tea, but she wouldn't take the cup. She just stared out the window. For a long time. For a minute. Two. "What do you see out there?" I asked. "Everything we haven't said. Everything we haven't forgiven." I sat down next to you. "Do you want me to turn something on?" "Turn on." "The tape." I was surprised. "A tape?" "In the box. At the bottom. There's a tape. You'll understand." I found it. An old cassette tape that says, "For him, if there's any left." I put it in, and I heard my grandmother's voice, young, confident, reading the letter, addressed to me. "Dear David, if you're listening to this, it means you've persevered. It means you stayed. I want you to know that I wasn't always right. I've been tough. I was silent when I had to speak. I gave to others what I should have given to you. But you stayed. And if anyone ever asks you what you got from that family, say, I got a chance to be what they didn't." I sat in silence. Tears were streaming down my face. Not out of pain. Out of silence. A week later, Grandma was gone. The funeral was modest. Just me, a few neighbors, and a woman from church I didn't know. No Linda, no Mom. No one. But it was the right thing to do. Because that day I realized, family isn't by blood. It's by choice. I didn't close the house. I didn't sell it. I started renovations. With my own hands. Slowly. No show. I cleaned each room as if I were sweeping out not dust, but everything that had accumulated over the years of silence. I found a hidden box in one of the walls. Letters, photos, even Linda's old doll. I didn't burn it. I put it in the box and signed it. History. For those who want to remember. I'm here now. Alone. But not empty. And if anyone asks me how the story ended, I'll tell them it's just begun. Because when you finally say no to everything that's been breaking you, you're not building anew. You build for the first time. The day after the funeral, I came home late. The house was damp and humid. Every floorboard creaked as if it remembered everything and refused to let go. My grandmother's teacup remained on the kitchen table. Inside was a dried trace of tea. I didn't clean it up. I just sat across from her and watched. And then I heard a knock on the door. I opened it. It was the neighbor, Miss Elvira. She's in her 70s, always with a pie and the truth on her tongue. I heard, she began. Yes, I nodded. Thank you for coming to the funeral. Your grandmother was a good woman. Tough one, but a good one. She talked about you a lot. More than you know. I didn't say anything. Did you know she left you a letter? She asked me suddenly. A letter? At my place. She said, pass it on if he stays. She took out an envelope, yellowed, with my name on it. Inside it was short. If you're reading this, it means you didn't escape. It means you have power. And it means you're ready to build a life for yourself. Not like mine, not better, but your own. I believe in you, even if no one else does. I closed my eyes, because I didn't need to hear anything else. A month later, I put a new sign out front. Margaret's house. Founded in memory, not name. I knew Linda would see it. Maybe she'd even come. Maybe with reproach. Maybe with remorse. But I didn't wait. Because now I didn't wait for anything. I was just living. And this house, for the first time in a while, was quiet. Not empty. It was really quiet. It's not that everything is forgotten. It's that you stop fighting for recognition where you can't be heard. And if anyone asks why I did all this, I'll tell you, to finally feel like I'm not a stranger, even if I'm alone. A couple weeks later, I got a call from the realtor. Someone in the neighborhood told me that my grandmother's house was now mine, and the neighborhood was starting to buy up old buildings. We're willing to give you a great price, he said. You'll be spared the hassle, you'll get good money. It's all official. I listened. Then I asked, do you know how old this house is? 47, according to the registry. No, it's 82. It's just that 47 years ago, they stopped loving it. And now they're starting to love it again. He didn't say anything. I hung up. Then I went outside. I sat down on the step. Neighbors passed by, nodded. I nodded back. No words. No need to prove anything. I was here, at home. And that was enough. I woke up before the sun this morning. I made coffee, went out on the porch. On my lap was that letter. In the sunlight, the ink glistened as if it had been written yesterday. I reread every line, slowly, like a prayer. And at the end, I added with my hand, I stayed. I forgave. I built my own. And for the first time in years, he smiled. Not at someone. To myself. In the backyard, where my grandmother once grew tomatoes, I dug a flower bed. Not for the harvest. For the memory. I planted a small tree. They said it would grow in 20 years. I don't care. I didn't plant it for me. I planted it so that someone else would someday sit next to it and realize. Here was a man who didn't give up. And that's enough. Family isn't always those with whom you share a family name. Sometimes it's those who share the silence with you. Who stays when everyone else is gone. Who remember you not for making mistakes, but for trying. Grandma wasn't perfect. Nor was I. But we chose to be there for each other. And choice is love. Before I go to bed, I blow out the light and look around the house. There's no gold, no inheritance, no boisterous voices. But there is me here, and a silence I no longer fear. So the house is alive. And so am I. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect gratitude. I just live. And if that's all I have, it's enough.